I found this photo of the on the Rio Grande, um, and it is more or less in the winter season, and we're going to be we're here in the fall season, and so I'm going to use this composition and create a painting of the river, painting water and brush. And how do you paint, the lighter, brighter trees against the background without getting hard edges? All right, so let's see what we can do. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think about how I want these trees. I want grays and oranges, maybe some of the leaves have fallen off. And then some of these trees are like bright yellow oranges, which it would be like in October. So what we're going to do is start by making it nice, a nice wash of, or mixture of color here for the trees. And I think what I'll do first, just to help myself a little bit, is I'm going to wet this area up here because I want it to be wet paint against wet paint, and I want those trees to blend in a bit to the background and not be so hard edged. So we'll let that sit a minute. If we're outside, it's going to dry pretty quick, so you want to make sure you have it wet enough. All right, so I'm going to start. I'm going to be thinking, okay, this part here is going to be dark blue. It's not the sky, it's the mountain behind. You don't see any sky in this painting. So let's kind of get some of this color in here. I have to take a lot of water out of my brush and pick up, because more of the paint. And I don't want, I'm going to get some gray in here. Add a little violet to my gray. I'll put some gray in here. And then come over with some yellow orange. Let those colors blend together. If I want them to be more intense, I pick up more paint, less water. So I have to take the, see, I can get this pretty orange in here. And maybe a little more in this area here. Okay, that's still wet. I'm watching it. But again, I have to think about where everything goes. Now down in here, I don't have to worry so much because I'm going to paint into that area later. But right now, it's this against this. So I want a pretty dark color up there, so I'm going to take my ultramarine and some violet, maybe some cobalt too. And while that's wet, I'm going to bring this nice heavy color up against these trees. And by controlling the amount of water and paint, I can get my edges looking more interesting than just painting a hard edge. So see how that runs in there? It really makes a nice edge. Okay, let's get some more of my ultramarine, a little more violet. Now some people will probably mistake this for a sky, but it's actually the cliffs behind. Okay, so you see, I got a nice edge there. Now while this is wet, I can come in with some gray too. Let's put a gray wash here. Let it run together. Up against these trees. Now I have some bushes in here too. So I want maybe there's a little more red orange in here. So I'm going to come up against the gray. I'm still working wet against wet. Keeping the water in my brush in control here. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. Gotta paint pretty fast when you're doing this, so trying to keep this is the edge of the water back here, so I don't want to lose that. And bring a little more orange this way. Okay, and a little more gray. Mix a little violet, little blue into it. A little more gray. And then down here, get my orange in there. While it's wet, I can throw other colors in there. And then I need to get a dark in there, and I want to keep that so that it doesn't have a hard edge either. So let's bring let's make this red with a little orange in it. Nice bright colors. Okay, and while that's all wet, let's go for the transparent oxide red and a little violet. I don't want to get black in there, but I'd like to get some dark. And the river back in there is shaded also. There's a little bit of a sort of an island here. So I'm going to put that in, and while I put that dark color in there, I'm going to bring this dark down here. There's dark up into the trees, so while it's still wet, so that it runs, I want to put that in there. And with my brush, I just kind of keep painting in the way all the brush would grow. Okay. Okay, it's still wet over here. So a little bit of color so it stays soft. And then this is right on the river, so I'm going to make that dark a little bit. And if I miscalculate and it dries, I can, and I don't want it to be a hard edge, I can bring some more paint down into it. Pull it in. By pressing my brush down and picking up as I pull it through, I can get the edge of those bushes. Maybe go back and fix that shape a little bit. Okay, so I'm not putting anything like on the trees as far as branches or whatever, and so I'm going to mix up a little darker color in here and bring that in there. Okay. Now I have a little island here, right here, so I might as well put that in. It has red bushes on it, and orange. It's just a little bit right there. Bring some yellow in. And then bring my silvery gray color in there. Let it be soft. Do that over here too, because this comes down to the water. And then I have a little color on the other side too. And again, controlling my water. I can put a little line in there. Let's do that back in here too. We're getting to the point where you might want to do something about the river. Okay, so since this is wet, I'm going to bring this down further so it goes behind this. Maybe put a little blue and violet in there. Don't get too carried away. Let the river be somewhat dark back behind this. Okay, my little piece of grass on that, or bush on here, got shortened. I'm going to push with, it's all still wet, so I'm going to pick up some paint and I'm going to push it back up in there. All right, so I got all that done, mostly wet against wet. I have a small little piece of yellow up here, so we'll darken that. So I can keep this gray, or I can add some other bushes back. I think I'll keep it simple. I'll keep it gray. All right, so now we have the river. Let's paint to the edge. Even though it won't be exactly the color, I don't want my edge to be all messed up when I take the tape off. I like it to come all the way out. All right, so, all right, now we're gonna do the river. We need clean water, so I have some clean water here. I'm gonna switch these two. And it's going to have reflections in it. So I'll take my bigger brush. Okay. And I'm going to wet this. Okay, so since the water is reflecting the blue from up there, but maybe, you know, sometimes it's lighter, sometimes it's darker, depends on what your light source is. All right, so I am going to let that sink in a minute. And while I do that, I'll pick this up. Okay, and I am going to then take my violets. I'm going to hold this up a little bit like this. And I'm going to take my blue, cobalt blue, and violet. And I'm going to lay this in here. You know, it's just a wash of, I mean, this is so wet that it's just making the paint just run out all over the place. And I have lots of water on my brush. So we're going to paint around everything. And then, if I don't like the way it's running in here, I'll just push it away. Okay, so here we go. This is pretty wet. We wanted to, you know, if you're painting out, you have it on your easel, or if you're sitting there with it on your lap, you have it on your lap. Now it's running down here, so we don't want this bead running back up in here, so let's just kind of get rid of that. Okay, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to add some violet in here. I might to think fast, so I might add a little gray of grays with my violet because I like that color. And I'm going to put it in here. Wherever I think I might like it. If it starts running, I'll catch it. Okay, I'm going to add some more blue down here too. This is way too light. Okay, now while it's wet, and I have to watch how much water is in my brush, I'm going to pick up my red, because this is sort of reddish, and let it, just brush it down into the water. The colors get oranger over here, and right below this, we want to put that. And right below the yellow, I'm going to throw that in. I keep rinsing my brush off. Could pick up some gray and violet. Boy, at this point, you're just kind of working as fast as you can to keep control of this. Okay, so over here, I want this, and then I'm going to pick up my gray again with my violet. And I'm going to bring it in here. Yeah, this is gonna start leaving a line. Gotta watch out. Okay, so back here we have bushes. I'm gonna get that one in there. It's leaving somewhat of a line there, but it might be okay. I'm gonna keep it going this way a little bit. And then maybe I should dry it. If I were outside, it would be drying pretty fast. Now, if I want the bottom of this to be darker and flow up into that, I can wait till it dries, and I can wet the paper again, and I just might do that. But right now, let's just put a few less touches on the bushes and trees by just giving them some trunks. On branches. Depending on what color you want. I started off with brown. Let's go into a gray a little bit here. Okay, so let me go back. Okay, so we want to keep my brush from splitting. Maybe a little less paint so that it's not so wide. And then with a light touch, I can get some of that in there. And then they start looking more like trees. Adds a little texture. Okay. It's probably good enough. Maybe a little gray back there. All right, so we're trying to keep this painting simple. I can't say that I like the bottom of that, so let's island right there. So let's bring a little dark right here. A little there, and maybe a few dashes there. I don't want to outline the bottom. I'll just make a couple of marks. But we have to make sure that we keep the water fairly flat. Again. Just throw some gray in there. It's pretty light at the bottom, so I'm going to wet this again, turn it upside down. I don't want to disturb any of the paint, but I'll just kind of run the water over it where I need to run it. Okay. Okay, now I'm holding it up. Add a little violet to it too. So I like that violet color. Okay, it's still pretty wet, so let's just kind of let it go for a minute. Lift up some of the water. Okay, now we can do it. Okay, so I'm gonna get my violet and my blue. And I'm just going to put a wash. I'm going to start off with it pretty heavy in color. Purple, my violet, dioxazine violet. I love that color. And then, you know, kind of bring my blue down into this. It's the thing with watercolor, you have to kind of understand it a bit to be able to use it, because you need to know how much water and how much paint. Hopefully we'll get the right amount here and let it flow. I'm going to bring this over top of this a little bit. Bring some yellow back in there. A little orange. So I want to keep it at an angle until it gets to a certain point of drying. I can turn it around this way. So we'll let that dry for a minute and then I'll be back. All right, so we have this darker. And I see a few little odds and ends that I could clean up. One being like this mark here. So I'm just going to wet it and drag the paint through here. Because this little island of, or a bit of bushes here is too squared off. Okay, so there, we softened that edge. This is pretty hard. So I'm going to soften those too. It's just little things here. Okay. So also, let me just get a little dark here and kind of put a few little marks where the edge of this is. The edge of that, just here and there. This is pretty dark in here. We could take a little blue, violet, and just kind of let me get enough of the color first. Okay, so you just bring water back in there to soften that up. We have this sticking out here and there. I'm not happy with that, so I'm going to just move that along, tone it down. You can on my paper here, I can see that, but I'm not sure you can see that yourself on this video, because I think these lights are making things a bit light, so hopefully we can correct that so you can see this better. Just soften that up a bit. And I'm going to do one more thing here. I don't like that being so solid right there. You can move the paint around a little bit if you want. If you have paper that will allow you to do that. So I'm moving the paint with some wet water. Wet water, of course water's wet. Okay, so let me just throw a little red and orange in there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is one last touch, maybe a few little marks there, but I would like a few right in here. Keeping it light. Okay, so let's call that done. And I'll take the little bit of tape off that I put around it to give it a nice white edge. I'm going to make sure that we don't rip the paper. Okay, so that kind of cleans it up a little bit, makes it more, it makes it sparkle more. Okay, and there we have it. Just a simple painting using lots of water and using a lot of paint in some areas, but letting it be wet against wet, wet against wet. And my grays help offset all of these reds and yellows. I let these colors kind of run in a little bit. They're not really soft edged, but they're soft enough that they don't create these real hard edges that look fake. This was a little more hard edged here, but I kind of like it. This is a little more soft edged here and here with the paint running together, and I like that. I like the different edges, the soft and some of the more pronounced edges, and then the straight hard edges of the branches of the trees. And so there we have it.